Hi, my name is Sarah and I am half Scottish and half Nigerian and I live in London. And I am from France actually because I grew up there and my whole story is a bit funny, but yeah.
What do you identify as?
It's quite interesting because when I grew up I didn't know my mother because she died when I was a baby. So I don't know my African side, I only know my European side, kind of. But the thing is because I was born in Rome and then I moved to Brussels and then to Paris. So I grew up with a culture that is not the one of my parents, yet I was very aware that I'm not especially from that place. So I think I identify as a European with an African, not twist, but with an African not background so much because I consider it being more than a background. It's like part of my identity, but it's half of it and the other half is European, basically.
Was being mixed race confusing to you?
I think growing up, yes, not so much now. Because as I said, I don't know my African side. Now I'm starting to know because I'm getting friends who are Nigerian and we're like telling me a lot of stuff about the country and the culture. But my stepmom is Congolese, so she's still African, yet it's not entirely the same thing. So I always knew that I was lacking something. And also growing up in France, I don't know anything about Scotland. And recently I've learned that my grandparents are not originally from Scotland, they're from England. And then again, before they're from Ireland. So it's just such a mix of places and origins that I'm like, I'm European and Nigerian and that's all. But I think it's just a shame that I don't know the culture of both places. But I'm getting interested into knowing it and discovering and visiting.
Do you think you benefit from white privilege or light skin privilege?
I absolutely do, because I'm not black. And I think I understand why people do that, but I still don't understand why people put mixed people as white if they're in Africa or black if they're in a majorly white place or continent. Because we really don't face the same things. There is definitely a thing about being lighter and people, I think maybe it comes from people relating to you more based on, I don't know, hair or color or something, but it's so much easier for us than for somebody who's black or Asian, but I can't speak for Asian because I don't know about that enough. Yeah, and even if you talk the modeling world, I know that's a thing in France, in Paris, where they want a black girl, so they're gonna take a mixed girl because she's more presentable. It's not really presentable, but because she's not that dark, so she works better to sell a product or whatnot. And it's wrong because we're not black, we are mixed. And we represent us, not people who are lighter or darker. Yeah. We don't face the same stuff in life.
So do you believe mixed race people get enough media attention? As in, do they get represented in ads, in fashion, and do they get represented correctly?
You know, it's funny because mixed people are from all over, and if you want to get the definition of it correctly, it's not just black and white. It can be white and white, but just from different countries, literally. But if you take the black and white or white and Asian or Asian and black or whatever, it depends. It depends where they're from. I think usually if you're in between if you caramel, I think you have enough people, but people are just so different. Because, you know, sometimes I used to look at models or whatnot, and they all had hair that was very loose. Their curls were really easy, and I never saw a model who was like me with this kind of hair. So yes, they show girls, but I think the spectrum is so diverse that it's a difficult question. Now, I don't know if I've seen many Blasian people or people that are more like Asian and something else. And I don't know if that's because there are less in where we live, less people like that. So it's a difficult question. But yeah, you can't represent everybody because it's too large. Because I applied for some agencies and I'm like, we're looking for mixed girls because they didn't have any. But I don't really think it's gonna pass because we exist. I feel like, I mean, it's possible, but I doubt that we're going backwards. I feel like we might face some challenges, but we're not going to go in a place where there's just gonna be white. Or white and black because of the BLM movement. Now there are more black people on the scene, But I think we're going in a world that's becoming more and more tolerant and diverse, so I doubt that the trend will remain a trend, but that it will become a normality.
Yeah. And you just said in your answer before that being mixed race could mean being white and white.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
It's like French and Russian, because it's different. Because like in French we don't have the word race. We use race for animals. Race is just the human race and the rest is colors. So it's always a bit confusing for me to use that word. But I know that people who have different culture, I don't know if you call that race or not. So maybe it's not my field.
Do your cultures clash at times?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe in a way that Nigeria used to be a British colony, yes. But not really, because as I said, I'm not really in contact with both. So no. There's just still this thing about, Western countries still, controlling the stuff that is happening in Africa. And that's very hard because I am British. I don't have to feel guilty about this, but I'm aware that one part of my history is responsible for the tragedy of the other part of my history. So I'm in the middle. But I think this is the only way they can clash, but I don't feel it on a daily basis.
How do you feel about people who don't like interracial dating or interracial marriages?
I tend not to judge people too easily because I try to understand why they're doing this. Is it coming from culture? Is it coming from tradition? Or is it coming from fear or racism? To be honest, to me, it doesn't matter at all, because what matters is inside. So when people say that, I just ignore. I don't have an opinion to say. I just let people do their lives. But I feel like if they ever met someone who's absolutely amazing but happened to be different, well, embrace the amazingness and the difference as well. But yeah, do what you want at the end. But you know what? I've seen that on YouTube. There was this girl who was Dutch, and she was married to black guy. And people in the comments were like, oh my gosh, you guys are taking her Dutch blood. It's so pure. And okay, these comments make me furious. Yes. But I don't understand why people do that. Like, just leave people alone. If you want to keep your blood pure, stay pure yourself and don't meddle with people's affair or whatever.
What do you love about being mixed race?
What I love about being mixed race is that I get to see the two sides of the coin, and I get to experience more and live more and know more and have two cultures and just get the whole richness out of both into me, even though I don't know much about both cultures that I have. But I feel like it gives you some perspective that other people don't. And even though I'm not white or I'm not black, I can understand either the successes of one side or the failures or the struggles of the same side, because I have either family there or I have been treated like a black or like a white in some instances. So I understand stuff that people who don't have a double background would not understand as easily. They can understand, but they will need to learn, whereas I have this because it's me, basically. So I love that, and I think it's a richness. And I feel like, I think it's already the case somehow, but I feel like the world is becoming to like a big mixed world, because we're all we're all loving each other and like going with people no matter where they're from. Last question,
What is your advice to a young mixed race girl?
Learn about who you are, and if you don't have parents who know much about their backgrounds, or you don't have access to this information very easily, always have this in the back of your mind, because it's important to know it and to know why certain people look at you a certain way, but not being ashamed of it, and being able to tell the story of your people and just understand where your ancestry is from and love the richness of it, because it is a richness. You have a story to tell, even if it's not yours, it will become yours as you live. So yeah, love yourself, be yourself.